Also note that the scale bar has changed and will be the same for the next slide. The orange dot in this image is the location of the permitted but not drilled injection well American Growers number 4, which is regulated by ODNR, Division of Oil and Gas Resources. Now we're going to go through some definitions. Class 1 injection well injects non-hazardous waste into the ground beneath the lowermost underground source of drinking water and contain our USDW that we'll be referring to there for the rest of this presentation. The lowermost USDW is defined as an aquifer that can be used to supply drinking water to a public water system and contains fewer than 10,000 milligrams per liter total dissolved solids. Later in this presentation, we will go through proposed well construction in detail. Now, we are going to move into the permit to drill application review process. All permitting requirements in the Ohio Administrative Code, or OAC, as I will be referring to it throughout the rest of the presentation, and the Ohio Revised Code, or ORC, all of our requirements are in those two rules. QR codes for both the OAC rules and the ORC rules are in the back where the sign-in table was. There are also QR codes at the end of this presentation for folks to scan. Again, I want to reiterate, at this point in the permit review process, Deep Rock submitted the application on May 9th, and Ohio EPA's completeness review began on June 3rd. On June 13th, our completeness review deficiency letter was sent to Deep Rock to request additional information for the application. The permit to drill application was deemed complete on August 15th, which is also when, and then on August 19th, the application was passed on to ODNR to be reviewed by these 4 divisions on screen, which I will go into more detail on the next slide. The Division of Geologic Survey reviews the application to determine whether the proposed injection well is unreasonable for mineral resources. The Division of Oil and Gas reviews the application to determine if the proposed injection well will present an unreasonable risk to oil and gas resources in the area. The Division of Water Resources assists Ohio EPA in identifying the lowermost USDW, or underground source of drinking water. And the Division of Mineral Resources reviews the application to determine if the proposed injection well poses a risk to coal mines that may be in the area. As ODNR is conducting its review per statute 6111.044, Ohio EPA also reviews the permit to drill application in detail for deficiencies, which is where we currently are in the application review process. Ohio EPA's review includes, but is not limited to, is the application lawful and reasonable? We also review siting criteria, regional and local geology, properties of the injection zone and confining zone, area of review, well construction, and financial assurance. The siting criteria for Class 1 injection wells are detailed in OAC Rule 3745-34-51. More specifically, with respect to paragraph F of that rule, a Class 1 injection well shall not be located with the points on screen within the boundary of a flood hazard area as defined by the FEMA National Flood Insurance Rate Map, nearer than 500 feet from the facility's property boundary, as delineated under Ohio EPA's Source Water Protection for Flood Program, shall not be located within 1,000 feet of the 5-year time of travel associated with a public water supply or emergency management zone of a public water system intake. Within 750 feet of a public building that may be used as a place of assembly, and also applies to places of education, entertainment, and lodging. Within 100 feet of a wetland or any surface waters that are defined as waters of the state, ponds, developed springs, or any water wells. I should also mention the exceptions to bullet points 5 and 7 are if the applicant submits proof of written consent with the application. This is a map of the registered surveyor's plot for the is on page 63 of the permit to drill application for your reference. And here we have a zoomed in portion of the bottom of the previous slide. Again, also on page 63 of the permit to drill application. On this map, not shown, but I will point it out. The proposed injection well is 100 feet from this drain that's in the center right here. Moving on to the area overview. After this slide, I will refer to this as the AOR, which is defined as the area around the new well where the injection pressure may cause migration of the injection or formation fluid into a USDW. The minimum AOR for a Class 1 well is 1/4 mile. Out of an abundance of caution, Ohio EPA has asked Deep Rock to have a 2-mile area overview. Calculations for determining the AOR are in OAC Rule 3745-34-32, which are identical to the federal rules and standards. As part of Ohio EPA's review process, the applicant must, at a minimum, identify the following in the AOR: all wells that penetrate the confining zone in the injection zone, all active, plugged, and abandoned oil and gas wells, all water wells, residences, roads, mines, and quarries. In this image on the right is a snapshot of Deep Rock's AOR. A much more detailed version of this image is also on page 54 of the permit application. As you can see, it does extend into West Virginia. The red star on the map is the location of the proposed American Growers 3 injection well. All active, plugged, and abandoned oil and gas wells identified by Deep Rock in the AOR are, in both states, Ohio and West Virginia, are in Appendix C of this permit application. Requirements for financial assurance can be found under OAC Rule 3745-34-62, which points to 4 other OAC rules. Financial assurance covers the cost of closure, post-closure, if any environmental impacts were to occur while drilling a well. If the permit to drill is drafted, this will be a permit condition. Deep Rock will be required to submit adequate financial assurance that will be approved by Ohio EPA, which will also be a permit condition. Requirements for the closure plan can be found in OAC Rule 3745-34-60. This plan must be submitted with the permit application. Specifically, this rule requires that if the well were to be abandoned during the drilling process for any reason, it must be cemented from the bottom of the well to the top of the well, and if this plan is needed, it must be updated and submitted for director's approval prior to implementation. In these next 9 slides, we're going to look at the proposed well construction in detail. We will go through the proposed casing program, details of the confining zone and the injection zone. And all of these screenshots that I'm about to show are much larger versions of the banner in the back. Beginning at the surface, I'm going to go through each one of these elements in detail. The conductor casing is proposed to be drilled and set 100 feet below ground and cemented to surface. The lowermost USDW in this area is proposed to be approximately 380 feet below ground surface. The exact formation is unmapped in this area, and ODNR, Division of Water Resources, will assist Ohio EPA in identifying it. The surface casing is proposed to be set 100 feet below the USDW, which will close off the USDW and will be cemented to surface. The cement in all these casing strings is the thin black line just next to where the arrow is pointing. Moving down to the intermediate casing. This will extend approximately 66 feet below the Maria sandstone and will close up any shallow oil and gas reservoirs in the area and be cemented to surface. Finally, with the long string casing, we will go through all the details of this slide. The salina group and the proposed total depth of this injection well are included at the bottom of this image for reference. sandstone and the Bass Island is dolomite. For this injection zone, there will be perforations or holes in the casing for the injection fluid to go into the injection zone. And finally, the long string casing extends through the confining zone in the injection zone into the selector and is cemented to surface. The perforations or holes in the casing will occur before the packer and injection tubing are installed. I also want to mention the annulus fluid on this slide, which is the yellow-orange strip in the middle of the image here. Its purpose is to isolate the injection fluid from the formation fluid and is also intended to monitor for leaks if the well is drilled and completed. Moving on to regional seismicity. Ohio EPA is aware of the earthquake activity east of Marietta and will take that into account when reviewing this permit to drill application. To date, there have been minimal to no earthquake activity west of Marietta within a 3-mile radius of the proposed Class 1 injection well, which is approximately where the yellow dot is in this image. It's hard to see, but it's just below where it says Washington. ODNR has regional seismic stations in the area as part of the Ohio Seismic Network. There is one of these stations next to the American Growers No. 1 well on Deep Rock's Class 2 facility property. Deep Rock also has seismic stations surrounding each of their Class 2 injection wells. And finally, with this slide, Ohio EPA has asked ODNR, Division of Geologic Survey, to do an in-depth review of the seismic reports submitted with the permit to drill application. This is in addition to their normal statutory review in 6111.044. And all comments generated will be incorporated into the Notice of Deficiency letter Ohio EPA sends to Deep Rock. After today's meeting, what's going to happen? Ohio EPA will continue to review the application for the permit to drill in detail. We will also be coordinating with DNR to grab their comments. All comments from the two agencies will be compiled into one letter and sent to Deep Rock to address all deficiencies. Once Deep Rock addresses all deficiencies and submits those to Ohio EPA, Ohio EPA will then re-review the permit to drill application. Relevant questions will be heard and responded to following this presentation. Ohio EPA will have information dedicated to Deep Rock and the permitting process on our website. A QR code for this is in the back where the sign-in table was, and again, it's also at the end of this presentation. This information will be updated regularly. If a draft permit is issued, a public meeting and hearing will be held per statutory requirement and provide the community with another opportunity to provide feedback. The best information to submit to Ohio EPA as part of our review is technical information. Ohio EPA has access to technical reports, scholarly articles on the Rome Trough and regional earthquakes, as well as technical guidance manuals. For submitting information, please use this email address in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, or mail to this address on the right. Don't worry about frantically copying this down. I can always come back to this slide if needed. And then after today's meeting, for document and records requests, please contact Rich Bowder. His contact information is on the left here. For technical and general questions, please contact Dana Pierce, who's here tonight, and her information is also on the right. I can also come back to this slide if needed. Thank you all for your time and attention. Before we take questions, I want to remind everyone that any questions regarding Class 2 injection wells regulated by the ODNR, Division of Oil and Gas, should be directed to them. I also have their email here at the end. We will now take questions regarding this Class 1 injection well permit to drill application. Thank you.
Bear with us a little bit. We're going to move the microphone down, and I'm going to have everybody that wants to ask a question come down to the microphone so everybody can hear. So give us a minute or two. chance to ask a question and a follow-up question. And then I'll call on the next person until I run out of yellow cards. And if we have time left, after I've exhausted all the cards, then we can go back and see if anybody still has questions. But I'm gonna, since we need to be out of here by 8, about 15, 20 till, I'm gonna call for the last question.
All right, and you're gonna call the first two while they're coming up.
Oh, yeah, my first person is Roxanne Groff. And then next I have, Brody Smith.
And while they're coming up, I just wanted to say a few quick things. First of all, I appreciate you all coming out tonight to give us some really important feedback. We, in terms of our classroom program, have never done a meeting like this early in the process. And it's become clear with all of the activity and some of the confusion with the Ohio DNR, the Class 2 wells, and the things that are going on down here, that it seemed like this was a good time and place to have this conversation earlier in our process. And just to be clear about where we are in our process, we haven't made any decisions. We are just starting to review the permit application in detail. The only thing we have completed is a completeness review, which is just are the pieces there for us to evaluate. So if there's information or technical information or things you want us to know, either sharing it with us tonight or sending it to us in the meantime, we really appreciate that.
Roxanne, your question?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Roxanne Groff, and I live in Athens County, where for the past 14 years I helped to fight injection wells, and we won. I'm here now to fight for the people of Washington County who will no longer tolerate being collateral damage for the oil and gas industry and at the hands of an agency who will not enforce or follow the rules to keep drinking water safe. Know the difference between the two agencies also, because I've worked with both over 50 years period of time. So this is a Class 1 well, and it has the same ability to migrate brine out of an injection zone, or I'm sorry, non-hazardous waste out of an injection zone that a Class 2 well does. And 7 injection wells in southeast Ohio have already been suspended by ODNR for migration of brine. 7 injection wells, 2 in Noble, 100% of the wells that were applied for in Athens County, 100% failures in Washington County. ODNR calls this an unprecedented migration of brine, and yet has not to date listened to a single complaint from a production well owner, from a landowner, not one. Even though they're the ones who have identified unprecedented migration out of an injection zone. So, my question is, will you require, under Ohio Administrative Code 3745-3413, a comprehensive investigation of all complaints of brine migration in Washington County and the cumulative effects of the number of existing and new Class 2 wells and their emerging risks, for the assurance of no contamination of any drinking water source, because we know only 100% assurance of that can be to deny this permit in Washington County. A Class 1 well does not belong here. It cannot operate. I don't care if EPA, make no mistake, I've worked with you all for a number of years. I think you're a little bit better than ODNR as far as being able to follow rules. But I know the director can ask under this rule for more information, and as far as I'm concerned, the application that you're looking at right now has so many flaws in it, I would throw it out and get a new one. Because the person who submitted that has made egregious errors in it by saying there's no seismicity and there's no migration of brine. And you just said you already know that there is, and you're going to study it. But you have a consultant who says there's nothing happening. He's the same consultant saying to EPA, not a chance of migration. We don't believe it. We are never going to believe it unless there's a denial of this permit. Thank you.
Your question was, are we gonna require,
I'm at, yeah, under the Ohio Administrative Code, 3413, it says the director may ask for more information that's necessary. Well, there's a lot more information that's necessary for you all to make this decision. Which the Government Accountability Office has already stated in 2016 to the EPA, you're not evaluating emerging risks in these counties that have injection wells. This is a federal comment.
let us try to answer your question. And we'll get you a
Sorry.
follow-up.
It's okay.
That's all right. We'll get you a follow-up.
I can't help it, we're all emotional here tonight, so.
It's totally understandable. So, brine migration and fluid migration is very important in one of the things that we will be reviewing in detail with this permit to drill application. It's going to be part of our detailed review process. We've asked ODNR Division of Oil and Gas for information regarding any migration of fluids, any migration of brine fluids in Washington and Athens County. We've requested that information from them.
Well, we find that very interesting because we've asked those same questions and they won't answer ours, so we'll be very interested in how they answer yours.
And you have our contact information.
Certainly do. I know how to get a hold of all of you.
Grady Smith, and after him I have Joe Vickers.
Okay, my name is Grady Smith, live in Marietta. But I noticed on your presentation here, you're talking about non-hazardous materials to be put in this injection well. What sort of materials are allowed in the non-hazardous? And is there anything in fracking waste that meets that criteria?
So, the fluids that Deep Rock proposes to inject into this well, if it is drilled and constructed properly, one of the major constituents would be landfill leachate. One of the major constituents would be landfill leachate if this well is drilled and constructed properly.
But what is allowed to be injected in a quote non-hazardous disposal well?
So, to put simply, anything not defined as hazardous under state or federal rule. So there's certain characteristics that a waste needs to have in order to be classified as hazardous, and we can provide that information to everyone. But the simplest answer is any waste that is not considered hazardous is essentially non-hazardous and would be able to be injected into this well.
Would you drink frack water?
No, sir, I would not.
There is a definition under state as well as state and federal rules as to what is hazardous and non-hazardous. Non-hazardous doesn't mean it's clean.
this alleged migration to the wells, the old wells were 1,500 feet or less, this migration is alleged. I can tell you where there's a water well that in the late 60s, these 1,500 deep wells migrated to the water well and contaminated the water well. Would you be interested in investigating and see if brine water has gotten into that water well if I gave you the location?
All of that information would be considered as part of our review process. Yes, sir.
Well, you want me to give you the location of that water well after we're done?
Please. Please.
I'll hang around, I'll make sure you know where it is.
Thank you.
I would love it because it's gonna take a little bit of work, but sure, guys want to get his concrete driveway damaged.
I understand.
But, yeah, the well's still there, I'm sure it is.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Go easily get to it, get your sample, see if we got brine water in that water well.
Yes, thank you.
Because those wells migrated to that well more than a long time ago.
Sure.
I'll hang around.
All right, thank you.
So next we have Aaron O'Neill, and then, after that is Daryl Huck.
Good evening, I'm Erin O'Neill, I'm 4th Ward Marietta City Councilwoman. And Grady Smith kind of already asked the question that I provided, so I have got 2 other questions I would like to ask, if that's okay. Since injection wells are intended as permanent disposal sites, who will be held responsible if contamination is detected years in the future? The operator, the state, or the taxpayers? And my second part of that question is, will Ohio EPA commit to enhanced public notice and plain language reporting so that residents do not have to rely on delayed records requests to learn about compliance and enforcement? Thank you.
You want to?
I can take the second part. 2 things. First off, hopefully most of you signed in at the table, it's not required, but we are building a mailing list. So future preventing actions and things, we can make sure we reach out directly to people that way. So please, if you want to get future notifications, sign in. Also, notices of violation, inspection reports, these things we have on our website. There's a public document, public records page that people can search and get those. And then so that's a way people can, anytime, 24 hours a day, can access public records. If it's something that's not there, then you can reach out to Tim or me, but also Rich Bauer, his contact information was up there. He's our public records manager.
And I'd also like if you could submit or get a card from somebody in the back, if you have suggestions for how we can communicate better on these issues or on these facilities, if they are put in place, if there's better ways from a community perspective for us to get that information to you, I would like to talk more with you.
Yeah, because right now, and I can only speak for ODNR when searching for public records, and it's damn difficult to be blunt. It's hard to find any information about what's going on in our community. So I just think that transparency is imperative, and these people here deserve to know what's going on. So thank you.
Next is Daryl Huck, and after him is Robert Lane.
Can you answer the other part of the question about who's gonna pay for it?
So, as part of the application, they have to submit adequate financial assurance to ensure that, and if anything were to happen during the drilling process, they would have the funds to mitigate those, to mitigate all those impacts that may happen. And they would be required to submit that before the well is drilled. It's going to be a permanent condition. They have to do it, and it has to be reviewed and approved by our agency. They can't drill the well without it. So,
Those requirements are inadequate. They're not high enough.
I'm sorry.
The bond and everything is inadequate, and it's not, we don't see it being used, and it's not high enough.
Thank you. We will definitely review that.
And the question was what happens down the
Let's
road.
keep the questions. We'll come back if we have time. I'm gonna go through these first. Mr. Huck?
Yes, my name's Darrell Huck. I'm Fairfield Township trustee. And my question is, is, how are you guys going to police this, or who's going to police this to make sure that they're disposing things properly?
So, our agency, if Deep Rock were to become one of our facilities operational, we do at least 2 inspections every year, and we also review monthly operating reports and quarterly reports for that facility. During the drilling process, our agency will be out to inspect various stages of the well construction, logging, various wireline logs that may be collected. We'll be out to ensure that all casing string joints made it to surface, things like that.
So, in other words, there's not a record of like a daily record where you guys have access to know what they put in there.
There is a daily record. They're required to submit monthly operating reports, and in that report, they're required to report everything that happens day by day.
Who does the testing on what goes in there?
I'm sorry.
Who does the testing on what goes in that well?
Well, we will also be reviewing that as part of the permit application process.
So in terms of what goes in the well, if this were to proceed with the permit to drill, there would then be a permit to operate, which requires them to submit monitoring plans, how they're gonna test, all that has to be laid out and approved by us. So yeah, we're not on the site every day. We are looking at information from them, frequently, and we're on site. We'll be on site more than what Tim mentioned as well, especially for a new startup facility. And this is one of the difference between a class 1 and a class 2 is the required regulatory oversight. Zipper.
So, how's come Washington County has to be the dumping site for all these injections? I mean, why, if this is a class 1 well, why couldn't it went to Williamstown or Columbus or wherever? Why does it have to be here?
I understand what we don't make the business decisions, we just take the application for permits.
So is it easier to get a permit in Washington County than it is
No,
some
they
other
have to follow,
county in
wherever
Ohio?
they would be in the state, they would have to follow the same rules. They decide, every business in the state decides where they want to locate, that's their business decision. If they need permits from Ohio EPA, they have to follow whatever the applicable state and federal regulations are. We don't get involved in where businesses locate, we just make sure that wherever they decide to locate, they're regulated by our rules and they obtain the necessary permits.
And just to follow up, Dina, we have a map of all of our facilities in the back by the sign-in table where we have other class 1
the state of Ohio doesn't even have a record about these vacant wells on my property. I had no idea they were there when I bought the land.
Let us, answer your question about who will be.
And to tell people that this is gonna stay where you put it is nothing beyond a lie. I can prove you wrong. That everywhere in the country, basically, that they dispose of oil and gas waste, it has been a problem.
Okay, let us answer your question about who's gonna be monitoring to make sure it's not.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
So let us answer your question about who's gonna make sure that anything that, if this is eventually permitted, that anything they inject would be non-hazardous.
So, again, if Deep Rock, if this well is drilled and constructed, and Deep Rock submits a permit to operate, part of that permit to operate, will be required, they will be required to have a waste analysis plan with that, to submit with that permit to operate. In that waste analysis plan, they will be required to demonstrate how and what testing will take place to make sure that waste is non-hazardous. And we will review that information both as part of the permit to operate process, which is a long way from now, and we will also be reviewing that with all the reports that are submitted.
I'll give you an illustration about Deep Rock. A friend of mine who's in the oil and gas business called me and wanted to know if I had a wellhead and if I could come and weld it on a well for him. And I said, well, what's the problem? He said,
Good evening. My name is Joe Tucker, and I live on McGill Road in Dunham Township, and our house happens to be almost exactly 1 mile as the crow flies from Redbird number 4 injection well. And I first want to say, I see a lot of familiar faces here tonight who have attended a lot of meetings on this subject. But I have a unique perspective, I think. I was Marietta city engineer from 2005 to 2023. And in that position, I worked closely with Ohio EPA on many projects, and I do genuinely appreciate Ohio EPA coming and listening to our concerns tonight. And I know we've got a lot of good people that care about our drinking water. That said, I want to reference an email that I sent actually on February 6th, 2025, where consideration was being given for American Growers number 4 injection well, which I realize is a class 2 injection well. But my questions are germane, whether it's class 1 or class 2 injection well. So if I can, I'll try to go through this quickly. So why is ODNR and Ohio EPA allowing injection wells to be located near a known fault line that runs parallel along the Ohio River? Shouldn't there be a minimum clear distance maintained from these known fault lines? Number 2, there have been 3 earthquakes in the past week. Now I'm referencing back to February of 2025. There have been 3 earthquakes in the past week in or near Reno, Ohio area. Is there any danger that continuing to put additional injection wells in Washington County will result in increased seismic activity like what has occurred in the state of Oklahoma? And if so, should the citizens be advised to take any appropriate precautions such as earthquake insurance? What frequency and type of testing is done on an ongoing basis to monitor and record the level of radioactivity in this water that is being transported by trucks on our public highways, rail, and barges in our waterways?
Let me stop you, because I want to before we get too many and forget your first questions.
I can submit this via email.
Yes, if you would, and do you have your contact information? We'd be happy to
Yep.
send you an email with some information. That would be great.
Yep.
Well, let us address you were asking about the fault lines.
Yes.
And the transporting.
So, with respect to seismic activity and earthquakes, one of the very first things operators are required to do before they even submit a Class 1 permit to drill application is conduct a seismic survey in the proposed area for which they want to put that well. And in the permit to drill application, they have to give us that report, and that's one of the things that we review in detail as part of the permit application.
Thank you.
Sir, let me come back to you if we have time. Like I say, I've got a bunch of cards and I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity.
Okay.
So, like I say, if you want to read through them, that's fine. Like I say, I need to keep going though. I don't want to cut people off at the end without a chance.
Okay. What impact do these injection wells have on existing and producing oil and gas wells? And I ask that question, and I'll tell you, I personally have been out on looking at wells with people like Bob Lane and Mr. Anderson, and I actually seen this brine coming out of the ground. So I've seen it firsthand. I think this is important, and I think I know the answer, but does Ohio EPA and ODNR work collaboratively together to provide assurance to the public that allowing these injection wells to be built in Washington County and here in southeast Ohio will not adversely affect and impact our groundwater and drinking water on a long-term basis in the future?
We can
observation or question is, why are other states such as New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia have so few injection well sites and Ohio has so many? Has ODNR or Ohio EPA studied what the other states require before they will approve an injection well? I would think this is information that's critically important and would be readily available to benchmark and compare what Ohio requirements are versus other states.
I can speak to that one really quickly. There are federal requirements that we need to meet, federal rules, in order for US EPA to grant Ohio EPA primacy to implement the Class 1 injection well program. Same thing for DNR. So our rules are developed to be at least as stringent, if not more stringent than federal rules. So all states have to follow that. That's a national thing. There are some states which do not have Class 1 wells. In some cases, it's because they don't have the geology, and in other cases, it's a state choice.
Thank you.
Is Kevin Torrance or Torrance?
Does the state of Ohio get money for brine that's trucked into Ohio? I think it comes into Ohio because there's more money to be made by the waste in Ohio.
So our agency does not get money from by the gallon for waste coming in. I don't know in terms of on the DNR side how that works, but I can just speak to us. There's a flat permit fee that they pay that is regardless if they take a gallon or not.
How much is the permit fee?
So the permit to drill application fee is $3,000.
And where does that money go? What line item is that in the expenses? Like how is that money spent by Ohio EPA?
So the permit fees come into our agency and they help fund our regulatory program. They're obviously not enough to cover our program. We're not making money.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I know that this isn't permitted yet and that you're looking through it, but I'm just listening to these oil owners, and all of this personal testimony, and I'm just wondering how in the world can this even be considered before figuring out how the migration is happening locally with these wells? Like, why isn't there even thought? How is this even being considered? How is this application even being read? How are your salaries being wasted by considering this? We don't even know how the migration is happening with these other wells. These people don't even know how they're heating their houses because they don't have oil or gas. Like, it's just mind-blowing to me. And lastly, I would like to know who audits Deep Rock's tests. So obviously they take tests daily. You guys monitor it, but who's auditing their tests, their information?
In what context do you mean? Like,
Is there a third party? Is there a private party? When Ohio EPA comes in, is the Ohio EPA the one that's testing their tests? Like,
we're the one that's reviewing all the information that's submitted.
information's written down by them. There's no interim.
So,
Okay. Are there samples taken, or you just like look at the paper?
we look at everything as part of our inspection process.
Do you take samples?
We can if we need to.
What? But seriously though, what constitutes need to? You can get back to me on that.
subsurface stress regime in southern Washington County has been altered by the decades of disposal wells, and that any new wells may eventually produce additional clusters of induced earthquakes. On page 50 of the permit application, it refers to it as alleged. Alleged site specific. Has the Ohio EPA considered the report commissioned by the ODNR?
It will be part of our review process, yes.
Okay, and with the current events of East Palestine, the fiasco that Ohio EPA is involved in that, and the C8 fiasco that happened across the road, and it took years before people come out and people died, people's health eventually. Why should we trust you?
Yes.
Next is Gary. Don. Excellent, thank you. And, after that is Barbara Stewart.
Okay, he just, you know, I know your guys' job is hard. These people are stressed. Like he just mentioned the C8. You guys know what C8 was? You know, I went through it. It's not good. You know, if our water wells get inundated, I got 3 things here that one company had to pay $299,000 to get water back to people. Another company had to pay $16 million to build a water plant. Another one had 3,000 people unable to use their water. From what I've heard, it's going to cost $5 to $10 million for warm water to put filters on there to take that out. When I was a kid, we had sulfur water come in our little well at my parents' house. It's not good to have sulfur water. My teeth are brown. Your clothes turn brown. You can't drink it. You can't cook with it. So then we had to go through C8 again. You know, these people are stressed out here. It's not good. You live in Columbus. I worked in Columbus. I helped build Wexner Hospital. Water systems are what we need every day. You take it away, yeah, life is gone. So I appreciate your time. I wish it would be more, you know, these earthquakes, this fault line is one of the largest in the country. So just do good diligence. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Barbara Stewart, and then after Barbara is, Don Hewitt.
Over 10 years ago, I attended a meeting at Marietta College, and this was before fracking was really even a word that people were using. And one of the speakers was a West Virginia well inspector. And what she said to us was, we have laws in West Virginia. We have to document everything that goes down a hole in the earth so that if it migrates out, we know who's responsible for it. We have the documentation to prove that. And so she said, people will tell you that Ohio has these same laws. And she said, it's not true. And I tend to believe her because I live right on Route 7 in the middle of Marietta, and right in front of my house, over the last couple of years have been an unending line of brine trucks going up to the injection wells behind the Career Center. And they have license plates from West Virginia, from Pennsylvania, from Texas, and they're all coming to our injection wells. So my question for you is, do you consider this a political problem in terms of the laws that we have in Ohio that govern such things?
I think that is a great question, and that's probably above our pay grade to answer that. We are focused on this as a technical review and evaluation of the law problem right now, but I understand your question.
questioner that there are other states who don't have the number and type of injection wells that we have. They also have documentation requirements so that someone can be held responsible besides the taxpayer.
What is next, and then it's Laura Goins.
Thank you for coming to Marietta tonight. A lot of people have said this to you already about the number of wells we have here in Washington County. If you look at a map of Washington County, we look like baby Swiss cheese, just holes all over the place. And each of those is whether they are a production well or an injection well, they're holes in the ground that are interacting with each other. And those injection wells are under so much pressure that it seems like they could be changing the geology when we look at them collectively. Individually, it might not be a problem, but there are so many of them. And I'm wondering if you take into account the pressure of each well nearby or around, or even in the entire county, that could be altering the flow of whatever it is you're putting into it or that's already there. That was my first question.
Go ahead, you can finish.
Sorry?
You may finish.
That was my question. Yeah.
So, each well that Ohio EPA regulates, both with facilities that are operating and both with facilities that are proposing to drill a well, they're required to have what's called a maximum injection pressure, which they cannot exceed at any time.
I understand that. And are the pressures of adjacent wells taken into consideration when permitting a plain well?
Yes, so that is something we will also take into consideration. So, for example, if I had a well here, okay, and I have another well here, and they're both injecting into the same zone, okay, they what will be governing that zone is the maximum injection pressure. If they're injecting in close proximity to each other and they're interfering with each other, that maximum injection pressure will cause them to not be allowed to inject anymore. In other words, they cannot go above the maximum injection pressure because that could potentially cause damage to the formation.
So you are looking at wells collectively and the collective pressure?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well that's a little bit really reassuring, but something's going on down there that's causing things to come to the surface. So I'm just wondering if it's the combined pressure of all these wells and our Swiss cheese of the county that is the problem. My second question has to do with our aquifer, which is what is my deepest concern. Once contaminated, how do you go about cleaning up an aquifer?
So clean up of the aquifer or any damage while the permit to drill is in process would be a condition of the financial assurance that Deep Rock would submit.
But let me answer that another way, Tim. We operate our program and have multiple barriers of protection. We do not want that to happen. That is the ultimate goal of how we regulate these deep injection wells. And you may not realize, but they are technically listed under the Safe Drinking Water Act, not any Waste Act or anything else. They're under the Safe Drinking Water Act because the focus is on protecting that source of drinking water. So that's why as we have making sure they're sited properly, that they're operated properly, that they have monitoring wells and things around them, that we're looking at any trends or interference. So that's what we do not want to get there. To answer your question, how do you clean up a contaminated aquifer? It is very difficult. It can be very expensive. We do not want to. Our goal is never to get there.
Is it possible to clean up a contaminated aquifer?
It is possible depending on the situation. I can't say that in a broad sense. There are some
willing to take that risk.
Next is Lord Lawrence, and after that, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, is Aaron Reynolds.
Thank you. My name is Laura Goins, and I am an attorney on behalf of Deep Rock Disposal Solutions. And I want to thank you all for sharing your concerns with the Environmental Protection Agency, and we are listening to those concerns. We care about protection of the water. We want to operate in an efficient manner.
Please, let's be respectful of everybody's time.
And I just wanted to say thank you all for sharing your concerns, and thank you, EPA, for coming to give everyone the opportunity to speak and learn about the program.
She's black as a bunny.
Next is Aaron Reynolds, and then it is Susan Besson. And it's okay if you want to pass, if you don't want to. Is Aaron? You're Susan, okay, I'll set it, if Aaron's still here, wants to ask. So Susan Bessel, and then after Susan is Anne Marie, is it Flowers?
I've got a two-part question on defects in the application. Part one, on page 258 of Deep Rock's 500-page application, the source, it states, and I've got a copy of page 258, it states, the source of water for drilling the Class 1 well is, and I quote, source of water, municipal, City of Marietta source, 7 production water wells from sand and gravel aquifer. Neither Mayor Schlicker nor Water Superintendent Eddy were consulted, and they do not intend to allow city water to be utilized to drill a Class 1 well. Close quote. Do you consider that a defect in the application? Do you consider that a defect in the application?
It's something we're reviewing in detail.
Okay. Part two of my question is, and this also has to do with defects in the application. Beginning in August, ODNR, Ohio EPA, West Virginia EPA, US EPA have all received information regarding evidence of communication between Deep Rock's injection wells and the Williamstown aquifer. Not one agency, nor Deep Rock, who was asked this question, the Deep Rock attorney was Goins, who we all just had the pleasure of meeting, has been able to provide an explanation, or even attempted to provide an explanation for why the frac fluid stabilization chemicals, PFHXA and PFHPA, are found in the Williamstown tap water. Before permitting a well, don't you think that a study should be done to understand why these chemicals are reported in tap water in the closest aquifer to those injection wells?
And that information has been submitted to us as well
Yes.
about the PFAS.
Yes, it has been submitted to you on August 8th, the same day that I drove the city's letter signed by 9 elected officials in the city, including the mayor, the
maximum number of class 1 and class 2 wells in an area, or volume of materials, injected into the ground that can be in any square mile of space. Are there anything like that for you as you're reviewing your permits?
Do you mean like if, for wells to be right next to each other?
Or just in RG, look at Washington County, are there any sort of parameters that limit you to say, we're closed for business, no more wells can be injected in Washington County? Is there anything on the volume of materials that are injected, numbers of wells, number of class 1, class 2? Is there any sort of parameters that the state of Ohio has written?
We have adopted new siting criteria for class 1 injection wells, and this criteria, it's like I said in my presentation, it states where wells cannot be located. If the number of wells a facility wants to put in is a business decision by them.
And so we have no environmental protection restrictions or parameters that say, sorry, Deep Rock, you have filled Washington County, you have to go someplace else.
In rule, there is no ceiling on number per acre. That is true. Okay.
So who's fixing to get something done with that? Your legislators.
But if the injection zone is getting pressured up, they cannot operate, and one of the differences, we have automatic shutdowns on class 1 wells, and if the pressure, they can't inject above a certain pressure, it will shut the well down and they will not be allowed to inject anymore if that zone hasn't reached a certain pressure.
No limit on volume?
My final question is, have you ever denied a permit such as what's in front of you?
So we have never had to deny permit, but we have had conversations, hold on. We have had conversations with folks and they have decided not to pursue wells when it looked obvious that it was not going to get permit.
Thank you for coming.
Make that happen.
And then, I want to apologize in advance again. Ted, is it Zavo? Is that
Hi, my name is Bob Wilson. I've witnessed migration to Bryan firsthand multiple times. I know you people are just doing your job, and we appreciate you coming out. I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask, kind of personal questions. Number one, what do you feel the benefit of doing a class 1 well in West Virginia is to us residents that people want to live here? Is there a benefit for us? Does it turn to gold in 2 years or something, or what? Is there a benefit?
I guess you could ask the same question about things like landfills and other things like that, right? To the local community. That's a local community question and based on the relationship with the business.
Okay. Well, my second question is, like I said, I know you people are sitting employees of the EPA. If this well was being permitted in your backyard, I'd like an answer from each of you, just a yes or no answer. Will you support this if this well was to be drilled in your backyard? Anybody got an answer?
Well, I'll tell you what, the way we do this, our rules are designed to be protective of both the environment and public health. And if things are done right, then everybody would be protected. I mean, that's the way the design is.
They aren't done right, that's the problem.
Well, our job is to provide that oversight and make sure the rules are being.
So you wouldn't be,
But the rules are designed to be protective of the environment.
so you wouldn't be against somebody drilling one in your backyard?
Like I say, according to the rules, how much you want to take care.
I wouldn't want a gas station in my backyard or a Walmart or a Buc-ee's either, right? I mean,
understand it, and I could be wrong, but their insurance is terribly inadequate. You know, their bonding, I guess, maybe that's another way to put it. But it's terribly inadequate. If there is, now I don't even think it would cover the lost oil wells. You know, let alone the drinking water for the community, or God forbid, if it got into the Muskingum and Ohio River. From here to New Orleans into the ocean would be contaminated, either with the forever chemical or with radioactivity. And please take that into consideration too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, again, please, I don't want to cut people off, but we've got about 20 minutes left, so we have Betsy Cook next, and then Bill Gossett.
School superintendent says we can stay until 11.
Betsy Cook, and I've been coming to these meetings for years with the EPA and with the ODNR, and I have asked for years, and you say this is non-hazardous waste, and I have asked for years what is in this non-hazardous waste, and people, the answer is it's proprietary. Well, I need to know what's in this waste that you're putting in my ground, because it is going to come into my drinking water or into my aquifer, or, you know, what is in this water, non-hazardous waste.
So each waste stream that our facilities take has to have characteristics with that waste. So it has a chemical profile to it. Most of the time that is company proprietary information, but our agency reviews all of that information. But the facilities can request to have that remain business confidential if they choose.
Name a chemical. What chemical is in this non-hazardous waste?
Yes, what's the average radium concentration in the waste that's hauled in? That can't be proprietary, that has to be known. So radium is an important thing because
We're not asking for the formula, just for some of the chemicals.
And they do report that to us, right? But it may be proprietary in that we can't release that information to the public.
So you're saying that you are monitoring, you're not taking any samples, but you're monitoring, but how are you monitoring if you're just believing whatever they tell you? You expect us to trust these people who are using us. We have 18, 19 injection wells, 4 more in the hopper somewhere. And, you know, you want us to take non-hazardous waste, class 1 waste. We're up to it. We don't have room for more waste. We live right near the river, and it is going to go, as he said, on down to the rest of the country too, not just us. But our water will be gone. We were at a meeting a month or so ago with the water manager for the city, and they said, oh, we've got monitors, we'll watch it and everything. Well, what are you going to do when the monitors start saying the brine's coming this way towards our aquifer? Well, we're working on that. That doesn't assure us very much.
Next is Bill Gossett. And then Carol Thompson.
Oh, ask and answer.
Okay, sort of. Carol, tell me.
That's me.
Okay.
The ask and answer behind her.
So after that is George Danziger.
My name is Bill Gossett. I'm the 3rd Ward representative for Marietta City Council. I'm here representing my constituents. It doesn't matter to me what part of they're from, where they work, or how they live their lives. I'm concerned about the drinking water for my constituents in Marietta. That's my chiefest concern. that being said, the K&H wells that were in Torch, Ohio and in Athens County that were shut down because it was proven that brine was migrating from those wells into regular production wells. They were shut down. Now when I ask you that and it's already taking place, but will the wells at Deep Rock be shut down when brine from those wells has started to infiltrate production wells within 2 miles of the location where they're currently pumping in wastewater from other states as well as Ohio?
Migration of fluid out of zone is one of our main concerns when we're doing these permit applications.
Okay, thanks for the non-answer.
So if it was found, if we found that were to be the case, we would shut them down.
It's happening currently. So my second question
Keep in mind,
is,
that you say it's happening, Ohio EPA doesn't regulate those wells, that's ODNR, so we don't have authority to shut those wells down. We're talking about the class 1 well that they have the application for.
right,
So there's no activity on that.
with the class 1 well that they're wanting to drill, why is the well not being considered under the 2022 rules that were put in place? Why is it being considered under the old rules, which are much less stringent than the rules that are currently in place?
No, so this is under our new regulations, this class 1 well is. I cannot speak to the DNR class 2 well and the issue of which rules that is applying to. I can only speak to the class 1 well.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, we're trying to give everybody a chance here, so please be as brief as possible. We'll try to answer your questions. George Banziga, and then after that, I have Kat Finneran.
My name is George Banziger. I'm a resident of Washington County. I understand the difference between class 1 and class 2 injection well. I understand the bureaucratic distinction that you're drawing between the Ohio EPA and ODNR, Division of Oil and Gas Resources Management. But what matters to the people of Washington County is all this stuff coming into our county, not only from other places in Ohio, but from West Virginia and Pennsylvania. That bureaucratic distinction means nothing to us. A few months ago, I called Ohio EPA asking for information about class 1 injection wells. And I asked, do you collaborate with ODNR on class 2 injection wells when they're proposed in the same site? And I was told they do. But that's not satisfying. And in response to Joe Tucker's question, you said that there is collaboration. And I do understand that you send the permit request to ODNR for their review. I am asking now, will you consent to an interagency thorough investigation of all the complaints of brine migration? An interagency study of all of the brine waste and non-hazardous waste injected into Washington County.
I will take that back and run it up the pipe.
Well, we don't want you to take it back. We want you to act on it and assertively claim, ODNR, you want an interagency thorough investigation of every complaint of brine migration. That includes the water wells and drainage to conventional wells. I read the permit request, many pages of it, a lot of it obfuscation, a lot of it misrepresentations. But another question I have is, there was reference to samples of substances and radioactive tracer survey results. will the results of those samples and the radioactive tracer survey be made public?
They are required to submit the results of that with the permit to operate application if this well is successfully completed. Yes.
And so corollary to my question about the interagency investigation is that this investigation be led or included in the investigation would be an independent geologist. With all due respect to Mr. Tomastik, he is very biased, and we are not getting an independent assessment of the geological faults, especially the Rome Trough fault, and the risks that that presents to migration of non-hazardous waste and brine. Surely an independent geologist will come to a different conclusion about the zone of endangering influence than Mr. Tomastik. There's a lot of support for more transparency, more information, and more investigation from the City Council, from water boards throughout the county, and township trustees throughout the county. And if you don't have time for the rest of the questions that people here are eager to ask, I'm hoping you have another meeting here. We appreciate you coming tonight, but we need more.
I understand, and as we've said, this is a preliminary, that we're still reviewing the application. If a draft permit is issued, we will be back in the community before it's issued. Yeah, we'll put the draft permit out for review and bring people back together when we'll be back here. I'm sorry, sir, I want to move on.
Well, what we really want, until we get answers to this broad-based investigation, should have a moratorium on Class 2 and Class 1 injection wells.
Hi, my name is Kat Finneran. I'm on the board co-chair for the Buckeye Environmental Network, PhD candidate at Ohio State in the Geography Department. And so I have two questions. And I've become a hobby geologist against my will due to deep rock, so be patient with me. But the vast majority of Class 1 waste wells have historically been permitted by the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency in Northwest Ohio, Northern Ohio, and Western Ohio. Most of the Class 2 wells in Ohio are in Southern Ohio and Eastern Ohio, just a note. You can see on the map that I made, which is also the map in the back of the room that the EPA provided, that they are the Class 2 wells are on the north and in the east. North and then the east, the north and the west. The reasoning for this geographic trend for Class 1 wells is primarily due to recommendations by both academic and state agency authorities, including both the Ohio EPA and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, that Class 1 waste be injected into the Cambrian-aged Mount Simon sandstone, where the majority of Class 1 wells are currently injected into. Usually beneath the Eau Claire Formation, a significant confining layer for the prevention of migration of injected fluids. Northwest Ohio is also far enough away from gas and oil deposits in southeast Ohio that the risk of migration and contamination into potential fossil fuel reservoirs is lower. Larry Wickstrom, who was the former head of the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Division of Geologic Survey, and also served for some time as the state's geologist, once published an article stating, quote, "A conservative approach seems wise when protecting mineral resources from contamination by wastes. To protect mineral resources, the Division of Geological Survey believes that the Mount Simon sandstone is the most appropriate formation for Class 1 waste injection. Of course, the Mount Simon sandstone formation is thicker, more stable, and closer to the surface across the northwest side of the state, whereas it dips deeper and peters off closer you get to the southeast side of the state. So my first question, would you confirm the formation being used here for injection, the Oriskany sandstone, Bass Islands dolomite, has not only not been used for Class 1 waste before in the state of Ohio, and is geologically much higher than the recommended Mount Simon sandstone, and is it not the same exact formation that all of the high volume Class 2 waste in the area is being injected into?
Most of the class 2 waste is,
In Washington, Tuscarawas, one of the high
so
volume.
it's injected into a variety of formations. Another formation that oil and gas brine is injected into is the Medina sandstone, the Clinton Medina sandstone, not just the Risky.
But it is also, the high volume waste is also going into the Risky.
I wouldn't say high volume specifically, but there are injection wells in the Risky.
Okay. And then the first question, is this the first time a Class 1 injection well in the state of Ohio has been put into this specific geological formation? Yes. Okay.
What was your answer?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Ask your question again, please.
So the first question was, the formation being used here for an injection zone for the Class 1 well, the Oriskany sandstone, Bass Island dolomite, is this the first time this injection zone has been used for Class 1 waste in the state of Ohio?
It's the first time it's been proposed.
Thank you. Okay, so historically, there was only one other precedent to the Deep Rock permit request in the state of Ohio approved by the EPA to inject Class 1 waste in southeast Ohio, and it is the Haverhill wells in Scioto County. There are two Class 1 hazardous waste wells in Scioto County. They have both been abandoned, which, by the way, is my understanding that once Class 1 wells become abandoned, they move to ODNR's overview? Is that like the abandoned well program, the Class 1 wells, when they become abandoned, do they move to ODNR?
They stay under our jurisdiction.
Okay, sorry, that was a bad Google search then. So the two wells in Scioto, which in 2011 had EPA confirmed waste migration from their intended injection zone. So the only other Class 1 waste wells in southeast Ohio had proven waste migration. The waste traveled at least 1,400 feet north through rock layers towards the local aquifer. According to the EPA website, those wells have since been abandoned, the two in Scioto. Scientists covering the site say that, quote, such problems are more likely in places where industrial activity has changed the underground environment. My final question is, considering the Deep Rock Class 1 waste is set to be injected not just into a formation that has never been tested for Class 1 waste in this state before, and also been discouraged from using this formation for Class 1 waste specifically by both the EPA and ODNR, and considering the poor track record of other Class 1 wells in southeastern Ohio, why then would this Class 1 well be any different? Or rather, what sort of historic engagement with your own institution's research precedents and recommendations are you doing?
That's a lot. we can certainly take those and respond to them in more detail.
Yeah, please provide your, or take my card, I think there's some still on the table.
I can also
Because that's gonna take some research on our part.
Okay.
To get back out. Okay,
Thanks.
and thank you. So I have like 4 cards now, so we're gonna try to get through.
All right, my question is, why on page 34, the map of the 1 mile radius around the proposed Class 1 well is the point on the map in the wrong location? It should be south of where the point is on the map, on page 34.
That will be a deficiency note.
What's that?
That will be a deficiency note that we sent. It is wrong. It is
Okay,
wrong.
so I believe,
Yeah.
what's that?
We are aware of it, and we will ask them to fix it.
Okay, you sent that onto the ODNR like that though, you're aware, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why did it say on the OEPA alert that was sent out to people that the location for the Class 1 well would be located at Deep Rock's 20225 State Route 7 Marietta facility, when the application states the well would be located farther south near Bramblewood Heights?
The best answer for that would be that the address that was given is the address of the facility, so that's what we use. We don't have a specific address for the well location.
Well, it was a little misleading on the alert that you sent out to say the well would be located at their 20225 State Route 7.
We understand. So, and we do have an actual latitude and longitude location for this injection.
I think basically, because I wrote that, I used the company's.
Use the microphone. Use the mic.
Sorry. I said, I wrote that, so it was the company's headquarters.
Yeah, it just said on there that that's where the well would be, so. And my other question is, in the area of review, the 2 mile area of review on page 45, why aren't the recently permitted Class 2 injection wells, American Growers 4 and Stephan 1, included in that area of review?
That will also be a deficiency note.
Okay, and again, that was sent on to the ODNR in that state.
Keep in mind, we're reviewing the application, there are going to be probably multiple more deficiency notices that we'll have the company address before we get to the end of this process. So what you're seeing in the application now may not be what's.
It just seems like it wasn't quite ready to be sent to ODNR in that state. It seems like those things should have been addressed before they was sent on to ODNR.
And on deck is Randy Beardsley.
Hello, my question is, the permit states the Oriskany sandstone and Bass Island dolomite were determined to be suitable injection zones due to their favorable characteristics, including high porosity, sufficient formation thickness, and good permeability. Since the 7 injection wells that have migrated brine in southeast Ohio had injection zones that were deemed adequate, similar to this rationale, how can the OEPA provide confidence that this injection zone can handle this waste? Or in other words, how will OEPA determine that the Oriskany sandstone and Bass Island dolomite have favorable characteristics, including high porosity, sufficient formation thickness, and good permeabilities? And what studies have been done to determine this? And then my last question is, if we run out of time to ask questions today, will there be another meeting to have another Q&A session?
Yes, there will be another.
The qualification on that is, if we get to the point where a draft permit is being issued, we will have a formal public comment period and another meeting that will also include a court reporter here to take people's comments down word for word. But we're here now because we know that's going to be months in the future if we get to that point.
And to answer your other questions, all of that will be part of our detailed review. So we're just at the very beginning stages. So.
All right, thank you.
Randy Beardsley, and then last question will go to Jess Archer.
Yeah, my name's Randy Beardsley, and I'm a Ward Water trustee. And I just want to make it known that it's not political, never has been, never will be. We're concerned about the water, period. Okay? I want to thank you guys for coming down, holding this meeting, I really do. And I give you applause for that. I'm just... I'll be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed in your lack of answers. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think you should have an answer, even if it's, I don't know. That's what I was taught in high school. You either answer the question or you say, I don't know. You don't give us a bullshit answer. Okay? And the guy in the blue shirt, you've been bullshitting all night. I'm gonna call you out on it. I'm sorry. Okay? Now, we're gonna get to my questions. Does a permit ever expire with the state of Ohio EPA? Yes or no?
There's just a two-part answer to that.
That's okay, that's honest. I like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the short answer is no. the permits can be renewed if applications are submitted for them. So.
But it's a 5-year permit.
Right.
It's good for 5 years.
Yes.
So it will expire after 5 years. It can be renewed.
Correct.
It can be renewed,
Correct.
yes.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. We're getting facts. I deal in facts. Thank you, sir. All right. I'd like to know how many more permits do you have for Deep Rock and or any other companies in Washington County in your office right now?
Currently, Deep Rock is the only permit to drill that we are renewing.
How many do you have for Deep Rock?
Just one.
Thank you. Now, this new well, is it proposed to drill into an existing well, or is this a brand new drill?
This is a brand new drill.
Okay. Now, I would also like to ask, what is the life expectancy of this new well?
I'll say it's difficult to answer that. It depends on the
I
well
respect
construction
that.
and what's around it. So yeah, I mean, some wells will last 50 years, some will last 100. Depends what they're injecting and the
So to your answer, we're looking at 50 years plus. Yes or no?
I don't have that number. I don't even have the construction. It hasn't been constructed yet.
That's why we're here. So you don't know.
Some of our operating facilities have been operating for 50 plus
50 plus
years.
years.
Yes, sir.
50 plus years. You hear that, people? I heard.
Some of them are 70 years.
Okay. During that lifetime, how much volume are we projected to put in that well? What's the permit allow? How much volume?
That is something that we're going to be reviewing in detail. I don't have that answer at this time.
I respect that too. Okay. That's all I have right there. I'd like to thank you for your time, but I would like to tell you that I personally do not want this well, period. And I think there's a hell of a lot of people that don't want this well, period. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jess Archer, and I live here in Marietta. I oversee a large group of environmental scientists, including a group that does a lot of toxics monitoring. And the first thing I want to say, just so everyone here in the room knows, this definition of hazardous waste and non-hazardous waste is a legal definition. Whether you're talking about brine or you're talking about landfill leachate, like you mentioned, that waste contains heavy metals like arsenic, lead, and cadmium, organic compounds like PCBs and PFAS, which somebody else here mentioned, C8. There's 2,000 different PFAS compounds. C8 is one of them. We all know about C8. These chemicals cause reproductive harm, developmental issues. They bioaccumulate in our bodies until we give birth and pass them to our children. So that's what we're talking about, putting in the ground and putting our drinking water at risk. I'm concerned about these risks, and beyond the threat to our drinking water, I'm concerned about the impacts to our infrastructure, like our municipal water supply, heavy truck traffic, and impacts to our roads. And I want everyone to keep in mind, this is bringing in mostly out-of-state hazardous waste, so we would be the dumping ground for the country. Marietta is a wonderful town. It is not a dumping ground for hazardous waste. I'm concerned about Deep Rock's troubling history under Senator Brian Chavez's leadership. Their number of environmental infractions. It's sad. I feel bad for you that you're representing them. That is a sad life mission. That this is one company. This does not bring jobs to our community. This is one company and one family that would be getting rich off of our community's public health, our water supply, our infrastructure impacts, with zero benefit to our to our community. So my question, which is a little unrelated to all that, but like many people here, I also have petroleum engineers in my family. So my question is, how do you know how much brine this wet reservoir can handle? In one of the prior injection wells, Deep Rock's injection wells in Noble County, it communicated with an idle well, causing that well to lose containment and resulting in over $1 million in cleanup fees to nearby stream. So how do you know how much it can handle? That's the question.
So the question is, how much brine can an individual well, so what is the volume?
This well, with this geography and this infrastructure in Washington County, which we've already established, there are no class 1 wells in this geological infrastructure thanks to your quick geology research.
We are at the beginning of the review process.
We
and the
do not
honest
know.
answers, I cannot answer that.
You can't until it blows out, until the PSI is too high, it starts blowing out the other wells, hitting people's drinking water and hitting their wells. We cannot let this happen. And I know, I've been on your side of the table. With my work, I know how this feels. And I know that you guys did not go into the environmental field to be permitting hazardous waste to be put in. Woo! I think about that when you're doing this permit. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So I have us at 8 o'clock exactly. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the meeting, and please remember that you can reach out to us at any time if you have questions, wanna provide some information, technical information, one document, so we will help you out on that. Again, my cards are on the back. And also remember that if we do a draft permit to drill, we will come back into the community. We'll have a formal public comment period. We'll be back, I don't know if it's in this facility, but we'll be back in the community to have another meeting. So I do appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know you probably had other things to do. So thank you for coming. We appreciate you taking your time to be here this evening. And we also appreciate Marietta High School and their staff for accommodating us. And again, please feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.
Everyone in this room needs to call your local representative. If you can.